Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a new game of StarCraft II Heart of the Swarm. Today we are going to take a look at a game that I have played last night. Actually, we're going to speed it up to the normal game speed, which is called faster, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The normal speed is actually slower than the in-game speed that we usually see on the ladder. Anyway, it's going to be a Zerg vs Zerg on Frost Alley, which is probably one of the favorite maps right now. And I've noticed that lately I haven't really uploaded very much ZVZ. A couple of you have actually told me to upload more ZVZ, so here we go. Now this is going to be a pretty standard ZVZ right now in the current metagame. I am going to be opening up with a Gasless build order, whereas my opponent is going to be opening up with a much more aggressive build, and he actually eventually decides to switch into Mutalisks, where I decide to switch into Roaches. So we're gonna take a look at this game from my perspective. We will watch this game mostly through my point of view. However, if we need to take a look at something else, we will obviously do so. This is indeed a replay of a game that I have already played, so hopefully I can provide you some commentary. Now, what I'm going to do in this game is open up Gasless. Gasless builds are especially good on maps, such as this one, where you have a relatively tight choke on the natural right here, that you can actually wall off quite easily with queens and a Evo chamber and a roach warren and a spine crawl and all that, and that way you can actually quite easily defend any kind of Zergling baneling all in, simply with the building placement that you're going for. So that is what we're focusing on right now. If you want me to make a video about this specific build order, let me know in the comment section below, right below that like button, and I would actually love to make it. However, I'm not completely sure. I already made a video similar to the build order video, but I guess it wasn't as in-depth as I would have liked it to see. So if you want me to create that video, let me know right below that like button in the comment section, and I would love to, and I will be going around doing that probably in the next week or so. So as you can see right there, I opened up with a hatchery first, and I'm following it up with a spawning pool. So pretty standard build so far. However, like I said, I'm not going to get the gas geysers until around the 5 to 5.5-ish minute mark. I think I might delay them a little bit more than that if I forget to make my gas geysers, which sometimes happens when you open up Gasless, which isn't the biggest of deals. However, I managed to find my opponent in the top right corner, and I need to find out very shortly what kind of a build order he decided to go for. Now, as you can see on the production tab, my opponent is opening up standard. We already see a gas geyser right there, but obviously I am not aware of that at this point. So right now I do see, okay, he went for hatchery first. Gonna turn my overlord straight back in the main base, so I can figure out exactly if he took a gas geyser, and if he did, what type of gas geyser he took. So there I see the spawning pool about to finish up. I see a gas geyser. I quickly click on it, and I see, okay, it is just a standard gas geyser after the spawning pool, so I don't really need to worry about any kind of aggression right now. So considering opening up Gasless, I still want to trick my opponent, right? So as you can see right there in the main base, I decided to actually throw up 2 gas geysers. Now that is because he actually flew in with the Overlord, and he's gonna pull back from this. Now when I took these gas geysers, it was around the 4-minute mark, and that is actually the standard timing for like a roach all-in. If your opponent, or if I would have decided to go for like a roach all-in, the 4-minute double gas geyser is kind of the standard, and I did decide to cancel them, as you can see right there, but it was just a little bit of trickery at the cost of about 20 minerals. There's a really big chance that my opponent is trying to overcompensate for this potential aggression that he might see very shortly. Now, in reality, I am opening up Gasless, and I'm just trying to be as annoying as possible, trying to trick my opponent even more by trying to target fire down the bailing nest right there, just trying to be as annoying as possible, and just potentially forcing my opponent to overmake defense. And he's actually, going after a couple of Zerglings right there. Doesn't manage to catch them, however, and meanwhile, I'm just getting more queens up, laying down 2 creep tumors at the front. He's already throwing down an evolution or a spine crawler rather, and I am just happily making drones. So hopefully my little bit of trickery did force my opponent to overmake defense, at least that's what I'm hoping for. But at the same time, I do decide to go for more gas geysers right now. Yeah, I was a little bit late on my gas geysers, usually you make them slightly earlier. So instead of going for double gas, I do decide to go for 3 gases at the same time, just to compensate for the gas loss, as it doesn't really matter all that much. Now keep in mind that I have a pretty good minimap vision right now. I have overlords and potential attack routes that my opponent can go for, and I have Zerglings waiting as well. So right now I can decide to snipe down a couple of overlords because I know my opponent doesn't really have any units out on the map. So I'm gonna make this overlord disappear, and I'm gonna send my queens back into my natural while I'm starting to create this little wall off right there. So first 2 evolution chambers are going down. I already have my my lair going up right now actually, and I'm gonna keep making more and more gases. Got a little bit too many drones in my main base, so I do decide to switch into a couple more into my natural, just transferring them over, and I'm gonna go for a roach warren next. Now, up until this point, I am pretty much blind, right? But what could my opponents really throw at me at this point in the game? I had a spine crawler ready, I had 4 queens ready, and really the only push that could have done aggression to me is like a roach all-in of himself, which isn't honestly that common, and even in that sort of situation, I would have seen him out pretty early on, and I could have made spine crawler. So, the Gasless build in ZVZ pretty much holds any kind of 2 base all-in. However, the weakness of the build is when your opponent scouts it early on, and he decides to go for a 3rd base really early on, because you know, I don't really have any speedlings out, I don't really have any roaches out until like the 8.5 to 9 minute mark, so I don't really have the option to do any kind of aggression to my opponent, whereas he could take a 3rd base pretty much uncontested. Now, we do already see that the spire is going up, however, I'm not aware of this, so I'm just gonna play this out as normal. Gonna get my own 3rd base right now. I know that my opponent took a 3rd base as well, so I don't really need to worry about too much aggression, and I'm going to ramp up my roach production right now. Now, the reason why I'm going for the roach production is simply for the fact that I really want to be getting a +1/+1 timing attack with roach speed done in the very near future, which is exactly what you most of the time will face when you are going up against someone who indeed goes for a Mutalisk play. So right now I'm not really aware of this. I do have an overseer out and I'm going to be flying around with this, but obviously I won't really see the spire until it's already done. As you can see on the production tab, it is just about to finish up, and you will be able to start producing Mutalisks very shortly. He did save up quite a lot of gas, so I do need to worry, but as long as I move out right when roach speed finishes, or maybe slightly before that, I should have a pretty easy time. Now, up until this point though, I'm still assuming that my opponent is going for roach play himself as well, because that is kind of the standard nowadays, so I'm not really assuming that my opponent is going for this aggressive build. So I decided to just keep making roaches and go for a timing attack, and as you can see, all these upgrades right here at the natural are lining up pretty much perfectly. Now, I do see, okay, my opponent has Mutalisk out right now, and I'm like, okay, well, I got a little bit of a problem right now. What am I gonna do? So, here's what we do. First off, I'm gonna start more upgrades, and I'm gonna move across the map. This is crucial. You can't just sit back, because if you sit back, you allow your opponent to get the 3rd base fully saturated, and you need to do some sort of aggression. So, I'm moving out, but at the same time, I'm also getting defense at home. I am getting spore crawlers up because spore crawlers deal amazingly well with this kind of unit, and I am going to walk into the natural and try and see what damage I can get done. Now you can see how tanky roaches really are, because these roaches are not dying anytime soon. I'm just trying to kill whatever I can, and I'm target firing down a hatchery, which should go down. Roaches just don't really die to Mutalisk all that quickly. Now at the same time at home, I am getting my infestation pit up, and I'm also getting my Hydralisk den up. The Hydralisk and the infestation pit is obviously meant to deal with any kind of Mutalisk aggression, and obviously the spore crawlers will buy me time to get there. Now I already had my queens out. As you can see, I have a whole lot of energy on these queens as well, so I know that for a fact I am pretty safe right now with all the spore crawlers that I got, and as soon as I get some hydras and some infestives out, I should be good to go. However, I need to device up until this point, so I just saved a whole lot of energy on these queens. These queens are full energy pretty much, so they have a lot of transfuse available. I have a whole lot of spine crawlers out as well, and even though I'm losing a couple of overlords, which isn't ideal, I am still looking pretty strong in this game up until this point. Keep in mind, I managed to kill his natural, which is gonna take quite a while to rebuild, and I actually walk a little bit too far out in the open. Need to watch out that I don't lose a queen. Yep, transfuse going down. I do end up losing one queen, but the spore crawler is in range, so he does decide to turn around with the mutas. So right now, I am basically trying to max out. My goal is to simply make an army consisting of roaches, of Hydralisk, and infestors. I know that whenever Mutalisks are out on the map, they get weaker the longer the game goes on. The initial batch of Mutalisks is usually the strongest, because simply put, once I finish +2/+2, and once I have Infestor, Hydra, Roach, he can't really engage that at all with Mutalisk and Zerglings, because the army is just much too strong. So most of the time what happens is that when someone does go for Mutalisks, they do decide to switch into a Roach army, and they usually just stop switching, or they just usually stop creating Mutalisks altogether. So I am kind of trying to keep an eye out on these Mutas. He keeps trying to do whatever harassment he can. So I'm trying to keep an eye out on these Mutalisks, and I'm trying to quickly count how many there are. I want to know whether or not my opponent is indeed adding on more Mutalisks, or if he decides to switch it to something else. So I keep checking. I notice, okay, that Mutalisk count didn't really grow all that much, right? So what did my opponent really have for options? There's two options. Most of the time what they follow this up with is a big Roach timing a push, because what they are anticipating is that I overmake Roach, or that I overmake Mutalisk defense. So if I go too heavy into the Infestors and into the Hydralisk, I will indeed be able to stop Mutalisk, but a Roach timing attack will be very hard. So most of the time you do see a +1/+1 timing attack with Roach speed as a follow-up, and I am anticipating that right now at this point, but I don't really see it. So I'm trying to think of options what my opponent could really be doing right now. He isn't going for the Roach build, it seems like. Either that or he is sitting back, or he's also not really making on any more Mutalisks. So what could my opponent really be going for? And most of the time what ends up happening is that they indeed do go for a really quick hive. The idea being that if you get Queens out with Transfuse, and if you get Ultralisk with +3 attack and +5 armor, you just sort of win the game. So I'm trying to move out right now, see exactly what is happening. My +2/+2 is done, so my +2/+2 upgrades are done rather. So I know that I'm very strong. However, I see all these spine crawlers, and I know something is not completely right. Get a fungal on one of these Mutalisks, not the biggest of deals, but I need to get moving. I know for a fact, once my opponent gets Ultralisk out with Queens, it is going to be ridiculously hard to actually deal with this. Now let's have a look at this this Zerg army right now. There are a ton of spine crawlers, a ton of Banelings as well, and a ton of Zerglings out. So I need to be extremely careful, because I know for a fact my opponent is gonna go for an army that I won't be able to stop if I allow him to max out. So right now we see Ultralisk in production, 5 on the production tab. However, I am going to have to get something done. As you can see, I'm already getting the Enduring Locust upgrade out, because most of the time Enduring Locust and Swarm Host are very good against Ultralisk, but I think it's a bit too late to switch into this. So I'm trying to decide where I can engage, and I don't really want to move into all of these spine crawlers, so I decide to move around. I know for a fact the Banes are probably gonna try and connect with my Hydra, so I'm gonna have to get some fungals up, trying to fungal this big clump of Banelings, and I do manage to get them down. And right now, just trying to deal however much damage I can deal to my opponent, splitting up my Roaches and Hydralisk, and I do manage to engage my opponent right here before all of the upgrades finish and before the massive amount of Ultralisks come out. So hopefully you enjoyed this game. I will be able to clean up my opponent. He does decide to GG, but let me know right below that like button in the comment section below if you want me to make a Gasless build order video for Zerg vs Zerg. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and welcome to a new StarCraft II Heart of the Swarm video. Today we're gonna be focused